So I really wanted to present for you these extremely rare objects, which are by a watchmaker named Eugène Montandon. And these watches are extremely rare. In fact, I have only been able to locate a total of 6 in all recorded data, and this includes one watch that was actually serviced in the 1880s. I believe it was in 1884, and it's not even clear if that watch exists at this point anymore. However, only one watch that I know of is actually in existence, was auctioned within the last 10 to 15 years, and this was a model number 1666, and this was made specifically for the markets, the English markets. It was actually stated the London market. However, that is the only intact watch by this maker that I have been able to discover. Now, that means that only 5 known examples by this maker are recorded, and I own 4, and these are all movements. Now, what you should realize about these movements is that we do see, actually in 3 of these examples, and I do believe that this may have been altered, that the aiguilla, or the hands. However, we do see that these tend to possess golden hands with a place for these gems. There are gemstones here. Now this one, the gemstones have been removed, and that indicates to me that these may actually be real gemstones, and these were salvaged, if you will. Now, the reason why these are in this form, only the dials, is that this indicates that these were all golden watches. And indeed, the only known Eugène Montandon watch is a gold watch. But this is usually the case when we have 14 or 18 karat gold, that the golden case is sold for scrap, and what is left over is the movements. Now, this is very interesting. And now I should state that this series of movements and the watches, this dates from this 1880 to 1890 period. Now, all of these watches are signed Locle, and I would like to discuss this interesting signing of these pieces because this is rather fascinating, and this does show us how these watchmakers were signing their pieces. Now, let us look at this first piece. This is the earliest piece that we have in this group. Now, in fact, this is the oldest Eugène Montandon watch that object that I've been able to discover. This has a serial number of 204. This is 34 millimeters in diameter, this ébauche, and the movement itself is signed Ene, E-N-E, Montandon, Locle. So clearly, when we have smaller sizes, there's probably on the part of the engraver the desire to shorten the name to some sort of abbreviation, and in this case, E-N-E. But this is clearly related to Eugène. And now, when we move to the second piece, this is the only known piece that I've discovered that actually has a signed dial. And this is Eugène Montandon, Locle. And on the reverse side, the dial, or rather, excuse me, the movement is signed Euge, E-U-G, Euge Montandon, Locle. And this piece is a larger piece, probably a gentleman's watch. To be certain, this is 44.76 millimeters in diameter. And then we proceed to this third object, and this piece also, the movement is signed. In general, the dials are not signed, and indeed, when we looked at the reverse of this dial, now the dial number and the movement matched. These were both 379. However, the reverse side of the dial read "Au nom," and this must have been an instruction to the cadran maker to assign the maker's name to the dial on the front. This is very interesting because it's the only instance which I have located such instructions to the dial maker. But returning to this third object, the movement is signed Eugène Montandon Locle. It's just EUG. This is clearly another abbreviation for Eugène. The movement number is 413. And all of these are matching, both dial and movement numbers are in synchronicity. They both have the same numbers. So these were original from the beginning. And of course, had the movement, or rather the case, survived together with the movement, we would also find that the case number would have also correlated with this serialization. Now this last piece is a piece which is, the movement is only signed, not the dial, of course, and it is signed Eugène Montandon Locle. So, whereas this is only 25 millimeters diameter, is rather small, almost as small as this, the engraver has been able to fit the entire name. And I do think that this differentiation was down to the skills of the engraver. If the particular engraver that was utilized for this subcontracting, if you will, for the engraving, if he was able to skillfully sign the entire name, then obviously he could have or would have done so. But whereas we probably are dealing with a range of different skill levels among these engravers, so that in certain cases they would have been able to make a very fine signature at such a small scale. And indeed, this is the oldest of these pieces. This is serial number 889, and therefore we could be looking at opposite ends of the 1880s. And therefore, this engraver may have had additional lenses or more powerful equipment enabling him to be able to do such fine work. This is not exactly clear, but this is a logical assumption. I did want to demonstrate how these 19th century Swiss watch fabricators had different signing techniques. And now these are all signed to Locle as the location. And so we have a Eugène Montandon Locle. Now, actually, he had been in Locle up until 1880. But in 1880, during this 1880-1898 period, we do find that he actually did move to Chaux de Fonds. And this was part of a bigger trend. Most of the watch fabricators in Switzerland were relocating to Chaux de Fonds as the technology was changing, the means of production were changing. They were moving to a much more large-scale production. And indeed, all of these movements are these so-called FHF movements in this style. So, but this is all rather interesting, and I do hope that this information is useful to those who are interested in dating or tracking various watchmakers. But these are clearly all pieces by the same maker. The amount of similarities is just too convenient to be passed over, and indeed the tight grouping of the watch serialization is also consistent with a single maker. Now, we do have other situations where, if you look at Louis Montandon and L. Montandon. Now, in general, when we find these Louis Montandon, they're always signed Geneva. However, L. Montandon is always signed Locle. And in this case, we're clearly dealing with two separate makers who had two different ways of signing their pieces. And this would have been abundantly clear to the engraver. But here we have one maker. This is a very rare, very rarefied maker. We know very little of his watches. There are very few watches survived, but these would have all been gold. And this indicates a very small niche market fabricator who most likely he had customers that were acquiring his pieces, and these were all very, this was a smaller shop but high quality, and so this is very fascinating. But I hope this information is useful, and that I would really like to hear your comments, and if there are indeed any owners of any Eugène Montandon pieces, I would really hope that you reach out to me and share your data, because this is an exciting topic, and I thank you for your attention. Have a nice evening.